Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey friends, welcome.
Wow, good morning.
A little bit of an internet issue over here.
Wednesday.
Getting connected. Yeah, welcome to a White Hat Wednesday and the podcast studio in North Ogden, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Any announcements from Michelle's Corner before we get started?
Are we going to have Michelle's Corner? I like that.
I
think that's a great
gave
idea.
It a name?
It's like, okay, opening monologue.
Oh,
What's
boy.
in Michelle's Corner?
Oh boy, I
don't have anything.
Folks. So,
I'm
nothing?
still busy. I'm taking care of estates.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's definitely consuming the time still. And so I'm back to V8 meetings. We had our first, we had a V8 Plus session yesterday that was really great. It was good information. Let's see, what was our subject yesterday? we had kind of a rolling conversation. It ended up kind of opening up to other things, but we were basically talking about cash flow, ways to improve cash flow. Okay. But it kind of morphed into, as often happens in these V8 conversations.
Yeah. And the nice thing about them is that you're not like diving into the numbers as much as just having a discussion around a topic.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's just for our premium subscribers. And then they, we've got actually 4 of those kind of meetings this month and looking forward to those. But last night's V8 meeting was our group 1. That's our original group. Some of our original members, were
Some
part
of the
of
ones
that.
Debated.
Yeah. And so and we had a full house last night. We only had a couple.
When you came upstairs and you're like, how did it go? And he goes, it is so nice when we have a full house.
I mean, you come away realizing
able to make it.
You come away realizing why we chose a cap of 8. We do 8 dealers in a virtual group because it's hard to get in a 90-minute meeting, present some numbers. It's hard for everybody to get a chance to get in, especially any kind of rich stuff. And that's part of what we can do with our premium thing. Those meetings are kind of bonus meetings, and we can dig a little deeper into some of the stuff that is, specific to a dealer situation or what have you. But for today, our conversation is a reality check, a gut check for 2025. One of the things that was pretty evident in our meeting last night is that, we've got dealers still struggling. We've got dealers that are stable. We have fewer dealers that are killing it, but it's an indication that and of course, for me, Michelle is a numbers nerd, somebody who lives in these numbers a lot with dealers coming in on our V8 stuff and other places. It starts to raise the question of, are these dealers going to survive, some of them, right? If they don't get their house in order and come to grips with some of their numbers, are they going to be able to make it work?
Years ago, years and years ago, I was single years ago. And I just felt like I never had enough money. And so I did, and I'm not telling people to go do this, but I'm just going to, I did the Dave Ramsey financial piece thing. And it was amazing to me because I really wasn't working off of a budget at the time. And so they took you through different steps and, where you're starting to track and you're starting to look. And it was amazing to me that when I felt like I was in complete control and knew like all the little things, I didn't feel like I was lacking, but I had more money in my accounts.
Okay.
And so the reason I bring that up is, and I believe this applies too, that when you really know what is happening and you understand the numbers, one, you're going to be a little bit more careful about the actual things that that it's like, do we need this? It just kind of depends on where you're at. And it's a lot easier for you to go, oh, I'm spending this and this, and I could do this instead, get the same result and spend less or
Right.
whatever. So and we talk all the time about how important it is. And we know, and I know, it's like, oh, another thing I have to do. Where with dealers, it's like you've already got so much on your plates and all of that, but it's just I almost just want to promise that if you do, it will help.
Yeah, I think what I see with the dealers that, we have dealers, there are dealers in that meeting last night who had to face some harsh realities. I mean, when you put the numbers, we started tracking collateral recovery rate. We've had different variations of the math. All the pieces are there, but we just said, let's just put collateral recovery rate on there. And initially I didn't do it in V8 because I was frustrated. It couldn't seem to nail down the formula. People were using different formulas, but kind of got that part settled and put collateral recovery rate in there, just because, kind of referring back to the dealer, Jeff Owings, who said, CRR is what people talk about. It's a number that people talk about in 20 groups. It's certainly a number that lenders to ask about. And so I think what I'm looking at, Michelle's, and I'm just going to tell it like it is. Like what you've got here is we're in 2025 when charge-offs are high. They were charged. Everybody said 2024 was rough. Charge-offs are still high for a lot of our dealers. Haven't stabilized. We do have dealers that are fine. They're holding their own. They're running consistent, but it's probably approaching half of the dealers are having rough portfolio numbers, a lot of charge-off.
So let me ask you this, because you've lived through 08.
Yeah.
Is this similar? Is this worse? Is this better? I mean, it's like what, because we all know, we can look in the past and history repeats itself. Hard times, things happen, whatever it is. And then it cycles, and sometimes you have harder times and sometimes you have fat times.
Right.
And so is this, when we're looking at charge-off rates and just the struggles, do you see any similarities to what happened in 08?
I don't even want to answer that because I didn't have the same kind of data pool in 2008. So I only saw my own numbers and what I can remember from my 20 group experience back then. So I didn't have the kind of data pool that we work with now.
So that I'm asking you to do like a gut thing. So
gut check. Yeah, it feels the same. Dealers were definitely experiencing, heavy charge-offs, access to capital dried up.
A lot of dealers, like, they had to bounce out.
Yeah.
A lot of dealers had to bounce out, and then but those that stuck around and those that weathered the storm, hunkered in, it's from my perspective, it seems like those are some of the dealers that are the strong ones today.
Yeah, I would say, and this is the White Hat Way tie-in for me today, is when we talk about White Hat Way, one of the big pieces that doesn't get talked about a lot is, obviously with White Hat Way, we're talking about dealers who are principled. They're operating with transparency. They're working to build trust with the customers. They're playing a long game. So that long game piece is really about sustainability. Like if I'm a dealer and I'm helping you as a customer in your tough credit situation, or your cousin who needs a car next month, I can't help your cousin next month if I'm not around.
Yeah.
If I'm not in business, or I can't financially afford to fund any more contracts, then I can't be that solution in the marketplace. So this is the part that I say that, White Hat Way can help connect the dots for the dealers who stick around, the dealers who are an asset to the community and who are healthy and stable. We want the dealers themselves to be financially healthy and stable, and all that applies to them and their family from a financial stability standpoint, because there are going to be some dealers feeling some real pressure as a result of all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we saw, and I'll give a quick example, what we saw with the tricolor thing, which we talked about, a week or more ago. I don't have a privy, I'm not inside the numbers. And so what I'm saying here is not about them in particular as much as it is when you see a big operation like that falter or go through a foreclosure, bankruptcy, or whatever.
Bookkeepers up the wall, but
maybe. But my main point is here, typically where the pressure comes from or what causes a quote collapse in a big operation, is typically pressures related to the portfolio performance. So portfolio quit performing well enough to support the operation, perhaps support some debt. We know in their case it was securitization. Again, I don't know. I'm not privy to what happened inside their operation. I'm just simply saying typically when this happens, it's the actual performance of the portfolio, the yield, how much we're being able to convert into cash off of the outstanding portfolio is really where the pressures come from. And so this is the part that, for today dealers, when I talk about a gut check for 2025, I'm saying I'm not talking about your cash and deal. I'm not talking about your sales volume. I'm not talking about your recon time. I'm talking about how is the portfolio of contracts that we already own that we're trying to sell more cars and put into this portfolio. How is that portfolio performing? And sometimes I feel like dealers, they hear it, they're interested, and listen, we love these dealers, right? This has been our lifeblood. This is our career for decades now. And so we love and respect and appreciate them. And we see some of them not focus on that side of their business enough. And I think those dealers who are not giving attention to their portfolio performance are at risk of not being around in 2026 as a buy here, pay here operator.
I'm watching, and we were talking this morning for listeners out there. We talk buy here, pay here. Not as much as we used to, but we talk about it all the time. Yeah. And yeah, I lost it.
Oh, God. Sorry. I saw you drifting.
Sorry, it was like
poor
her eyes are rolling back to the back of her head.
Yeah.
I did have a question though. Going back again to 08, because 08 was a pretty rough stretch for buy here, pay here, and I'm not sure that buy here, pay here was around in the 70s, but it probably was, because that was probably another really rough 20 to 30 years. Every 20 to 30 years, it seems like boom, boom, boom. Okay. How, this may be a loaded question. About how long does the really rough stuff last before it starts getting better? Do you know?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer that one either. It doesn't recover quickly, right?
It doesn't recover quickly, but it just, you hit the worst, and then it doesn't last for years and years and years.
No, but you're talking typically years, not months.
Yes.
So what I will be advising our clients and dealers to do is prepare for the idea that this doesn't shift right away, that you're not going to start getting 8% interest from your lender anytime soon.
Yeah, and just kind of watching what the global stage, it's like this is different than 08 too, is because we're seeing how everything is so much more intricately. It's just lots and lots of threads and ties to what's happening around the globe too. So, it probably will be some kind of a global as things reset and all that. Let's kind of go to some of these talking points of the illusion of instinct.
Okay, I've got them so we can show them on the screen too. So the illusion of instinct is sometimes when we're operating on instinct, and we see a lot of that in buy here, pay here. Why? Dealers are naturally drawn to that segment because of the independence. They get to step in there and be their own operator and run their own thing and do their own model. And we love it, right? That's part of what is beautiful about this industry. And when we rely on instinct, it can get us in trouble in this instance. And I think we've got some examples across our data pool now of people that, are kind of running on instinct and they're feeling good about, their bank accounts are fine. But what they're not recognizing is that the model that they're running may not be sustainable. It may not hold up in the long run because it's not converting to cash well. And if you want to slow grow it and kind of limp along organically and deal with a lot of charge-offs. And I had a dealer say a while back, and it's something that I guess I hadn't thought about it exactly that way. He says, it takes every bit as much of our energy operationally to repossess and process a charge-off as it does to sell a new account. So when you're experiencing charge-offs, and some of our dealers are charging off more than they're selling. So that just means you've got demands on that side of your business. And I guess my point here is that when it comes to instinct, we can't get by on what we used to get by on. We just, here's our reality in 2025. We've got to get better about our numbers. We've got to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to grow our business and we're going to have conversations with lenders and they ask us, so dealer, let's call them dealer W, white hat dealer, and dealer X. Okay. Lender says to dealer W, we're going to do an analysis on your collateral recovery rate and some of these other, metrics,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get back to you. And if I can say to the lender, you're going to find that our collateral recovery rate had dipped to the 60s, but it's been running pretty much in the mid 70s since April. And dealer X says, what is collateral recovery rate? How does that work?
The scary thing is, and I know there's a lot of dealers out there that are like, what? Everyone knows. No, not everyone knows. I mean, they've heard it, but they don't understand how to get to it.
Yeah.
And they, and
in our meeting last night, I gave dealers kind of the I call it like gym language or whatever. I gave them the language that was kind of my own interpretation. Because if you look at just the actual formula, the way it's kind of written, collateral recovery, just for our listeners not familiar, that's going to be something that is really just looking at what I would call the principal yield, like how much principal did we collect out of the portfolio. Typically it's tracked monthly, and then you'd look at a 3 or 6 month rolling average. But if you just look at a single month,
principal and interest.
Correct. And this is just
only.
principal.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I wrote my new definition is the principal that we banked, including repos. So if you bring in the value of your repos,
that goes into the column of principal.
Right.
Okay.
Compared to how much principal the portfolio was reduced in total. So if you think about that, anything else that would be reduced would be charge-offs. So it's really, that's why the flip side of that is the loss to liquidation ratio. They're just inverse ratios, right? They look at different things. But bottom line is, how much principal did we bank? So in other words, think of a portfolio. If you take out new contracts that you originated, you take out contracts that you acquired or sold, and you say, okay, during the month of August, our portfolio went down by this much principal. How much of that went in the bank? That's what a bank wants to know, is how well are you converting your portfolio into the bank account? Because that's how you're going to repay me as a lender, right? So there's interest over there, and there's other things to look at. And so we can talk about that more as we get into this, because we've got some other things. But I think the hazards of flying blind are just what we described. It's like when we don't know these numbers, this stuff can sneak up on us.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be in a conversation with a lender or an investor or your partners.
There's plenty of dealers out there right now that are having really difficult conversations with their lenders. And lenders are constricting, which means that and this goes back to Russell Moore years ago. He posted something about his wife saying, isn't this the same thing when we get irritated, our lenders are constricting? Isn't that the same thing that our customers feel about us because we're the lender? And so we're seeing this tightening, this constriction, this we're having to follow the rules and all of that. And it's scary for a lot of dealers.
I think it's two things. I mean, you're talking about two different things. There's the relationship that we have with a lender because we're already in a business relationship. We have financing with them, and our portfolio is not performing, and now we're struggling to make the payments or whatever. And so there's that. And those conversations are happening in VA because we have confidential environment over there, and they speak freely, and we talk very much about what's going on with investors and lenders. And
so, I mean, it's for those of you who haven't had those conversations with your lenders, they're happening. They're happening more than they have in the past. They're happening. So be aware if you have a lender, that just be aware that you may end up having a conversation if there are certain things that are looking favorable to your capital providers.
If you think it doesn't happen or can't happen to you, I've seen way more than I used to see in terms of conversations with actual foreclosures. Like foreclosures on a portfolio, at least. So it's happening. But anyway, just the hazards of flying blind here is that we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants. We're focused on sales. We're kind of tunnel vision, and that thing we've talked about in the past is we feel like sometimes as dealers or entrepreneurs that the answer to my thing is just to sell more. I can sell my way out of this situation. And what we would say is pause, step off of that mindset for a minute, and don't think so much about sales and deal structure. Go look at your portfolio performance. Make sure make sure you can find all the numbers in your software to help you know what's happening in your portfolio. And we continue to have dialogue with software people. Some of them are cooperating with us. Some of our dealers are really struggling to pull together these numbers. And this is sometimes when they're flying blind, it's not maybe that they don't want to or they're not willing to, but they don't know where to find the numbers. They don't know what we would recommend sometimes that they be tracking, right? So collateral recovery rate is one that, we'll continue to talk about that. I don't want to forget, folks can come back here and join us on Friday. We're going to go a step further than we did last Friday in terms of actual repossession numbers and some calculations and how we can show collateral recovery rate in a different way, give a feel for what's happening across our V8 ecosystem and some real-time kind of numbers. I mean, these are August numbers that people are seeing in these meetings. But let's talk about KPIs and why I think, when I think about numbers to know.
John Haggerton, thanks, John. Hey, guys, great info.
Good.
Okay.
Good morning.
Yes.
And then, so numbers to know. Let's talk about
KPIs. And dealers are always like, hungry. Give me some KPIs. And here's the funny thing, because it's like, I need to know exactly what the numbers are that I need to be, what ratios and all of that. Part of the problem is even if you give KPIs, if you don't know how to get to a correct number in your DMS, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a big problem because you can see, and we deal with so many different DMSs and they all do it differently. Yeah. And so to say, just push this button and it's going to give you everything. It's like, we're finding that some DMSs, you push that button and it's like, in order to compare apples to apples, you need to now subtract this, add this, divide, whatever it is. So, KPIs.
Yeah. So KPIs, I would just say the white hat way connection here is, again, sustainability. It's like, what are the KPIs that we would want to measure? Sometimes, so KPI, for anybody hearing it for the first time, is key performance indicator. It's like, what are the indicators? And for me today, I want to just focus on the portfolio side. I just want to say, let's look at the metrics on what is the portfolio yield, and don't we recognize why that's going to matter to our long-term sustainability? We're pumping a bunch of contracts into a portfolio. A percentage of those are charging off. At the minimum, that's an interruption in our cash flow, but it could be worse. Depends on, we talked a lot about last night, market size. If you're a small market, this can hurt even more. So because your ability to process and find a new buyer for that repo and get a car payment coming in on that collateral, it's just tricky. So it's like, this is why we think it's important. Let's just start by just knowing these numbers. This is our gut check, our reality check, is let's get familiar with our numbers, folks, because this is going to help folks like me to help you. It's going to help you to get that refinancing when you need to go get a line of credit to grow your business. When you're on top of these numbers and you make sure that your numbers are healthy, then this is going to be the part. So let's talk about numbers to know. And I'm going to kind of go in reverse order here, Michelle. I'm going to start down here with number 3. And we've talked about this one on the podcast in the past. This one would be, I like this one because it's something you can scratch out on a napkin. And I think this is something that you go in a lot of dealerships and you'll see a sales board. How many have we sold, right? Especially people coming out of new car retail, they're used to kind of having a sales board and tracking sales. If I could walk into a dealership and see this number, June, July, August, see the results, see
tracking,
and you can
on a board,
any software. All I have to know is how many accounts did I have at the start of the period, and then how much total principal and interest did we collect in that month. So if I'm looking at August, I'm saying, okay, I started August with 237 accounts. I collected this much principal and interest in the month of August. How much is that per account? Put that number on the board.
Like the average.
But make that part of your culture, make that part of your management meetings to know how well did we collect, because people get tangled up.
P&I collected per account at the open of the period. So
and it's
like
kind of
the first of the month, or by the end of the month, or the first of from what you did at the end of the month, you're putting it on for that.
And I'll preemptively answer the question about how much should that number be. It depends on where you're payments are. Like everybody's portfolios would be different. Some people have an average payment of 600, some have an average payment of 525. So I can't tell you what that number should be in your case, but you will be able to see if you start putting it on that whiteboard and charting that thing month over month and looking at the results, you will know, was August up or down, and that's after the fact. Like this is like getting our report card for August, and now we see the number, but obviously we want to be more proactive than that. And so we want to ultimately focus on numbers that'll help us improve that number and know kind of how we're tracking, as we go through the month. So number 2 would be that collateral recovery rate. That's that number we talked about.
Also on the board, like this is the collateral recovery rate.
It could be, but this one takes a little more calculation. People might need a template or something to do that. But I'd say it's a little more challenging. I put a couple my coffee is acting up on me. I would say that I put a couple stars in there because we have to adjust. When I say total principal reduction, you have to remember to adjust the number of new contracts that you put in the portfolio.
So in the collateral recovery rate is the principal banked. We talked about that before, divided by
total principal reduction. So, if your portfolio started out the month at 1.8 and it closed the month at 1.7, again, you have to adjust. Obviously, it would have gone up by the number of new contracts you put in there. So you have to take those out and say, when I factor in removing the new contracts that we added, our portfolio actually went down by X. And the other star would be if we sold contracts. We need to remove that as well, because that's an adjustment to principal, but it's not necessarily a reflection of collections, right? Those contracts left the portfolio for that reason. But so, and then the number 1 over here would be interest coverage. I think this is an area that we're seeing a high percentage of and I've been telling our dealers, when you see this, folks, this did not used to look like this when we sat in a V8 meeting, that more than half of our members are running upside down on their interest coverage. So let's go through the math.
What is interest coverage and what does it do? I mean,
it's a measurement of the portfolio. So in the Vegas presentation, when I talked about profitability and we talked about cash flow, on the profitability side, we said, if you look at your portfolio, think about your buy here, pay here division as being, or if you have an RFC, think about your finance company over here being the finance division of your entity. It's the one that's managing this portfolio, which is what I'm saying we need to be paying attention to. And if you look at this and say, typically the reason we charge a higher interest rate in a buy here, pay here contract is because we are looking for that interest to cover our losses, our net charge-off losses.
Isn't that the argument that is made in Washington, D.C. when we're talking the policy conferences and stuff and the CFPB, and it's like, why do you charge so much interest? It's like, because it covers X.
Yeah, because our net charge-off.
Yeah, because so the high interest rate is the interest covering your losses.
With more than half of our dealers right now, it doesn't matter where their interest is; they're not covering. So their net charge-offs are in excess in the period, and this is another one that we look at on a rolling average, but in a period. And for most of 2025, I can say right now, most of our V8 members or probably more than half are running upside down in that number. Their interest is not covering their net charge-off. So from a profitability standpoint, what that says is now my sales department, this is super simplistic and you really need to see the presentation from June to make sense of all this. But now whatever loss in my finance side is not covered by my interest, now it gets kind of charged to the rest of the operation. So you could say it's an additional expense sort of to the operation because it's not being covered by the interest. So this is where our profitability gets tested. That's another thing that a lender is going to be looking at when they come in. They're looking at profitability more closely. They're going to be, the performance of your portfolio is going to be, one indication of profitability on that side. And so now if you're upside down on that number, that just means your sales side, so to speak, has to absorb those losses as well, or globally you have to absorb those losses, and so it hits your profitability, and so dealers are hurting from a profitability standpoint. Now let's be clear, today's profitability is not the same as today's cash flow. Some dealers may feel they're fine on today's cash flow because they've had repos and that's more than the car payment.
We typically say cash is king. can that shift? So it's like,
Depends on how dealers invest the cash.
Okay.
And it also has a little bit to do with, let's say that I repoed 20 cars last month and sold 20. The question becomes, if I have 20 additional cars in my inventory now, can I find buyers for those next month? If not, I'm sitting on a bunch of inventory. I'm writing off a bunch of contracts. I'm not replacing them. I'm not getting new car payments out of that collateral. And so that's really the turnaround, like the turnaround that I can recycle that collateral. And will I find new buyers who are qualified and who are not going to have the same problem the last customer had, right? In terms of, this is the part that we have to be able to get familiar with our repo and our portfolio performance numbers. And so this is why, I keep talking about it and finding new ways to present the information to dealers. But I think just these three numbers that I gave are going to be, if you could get those numbers on a board and get a feel for what's happening with your business. And listen, this is where software's got to help us. I mean, we see some of our dealers really struggling. I'm not naming names over here today about which software, but some of our dealers, especially on certain software, are really struggling to pull together the numbers that they need.
Why?
Because one, they either don't know their software well enough to know. They haven't had anybody like me come in and say,
Is that because it's a difficult software and it's not intuitive, or just because they haven't learned? Because I do know there are some softwares that are hard to navigate.
Yeah. And I think I could just say it. Some of the software is just simply not producing the data, or you have to go 3 layers deep into some special export to get to the numbers that you really need to begin to run this math. And this is why I say Way is going to continue to ask DMS providers on behalf of dealers to pull together this information, put it in front of dealers so it's easier for them to have this information at their fingertips so they can know, because it's a situation where we're pressing dealers to say, find these numbers. Tell us why the numbers that you turned in on your V8 report are off by $138,000. Why did you send us numbers that you have $138,000 unaccounted for the month of August?
And that's, so frequently that is the conversation that we have, that because dealers haven't been looking at their numbers and they're just throwing stuff together. It's like, oh gosh, on paper, this just looks.
I know. And so I'm just saying we're not out to embarrass anybody. In fact, we're leaning in on the data side. We're going to continue to try to help dealers find the information. We meet with dealers. They all have my Zoom link or my link. They can hop on my calendar and we can work through the data together. We're leaning in to help dealers find this information, because we don't know, without having those numbers in the right columns, we don't know if their numbers are, their portfolio is performing well or not.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things with the V8 is because we verify numbers, we do spot checks and verification. Then we know that the numbers looked at are apples to apples.
Yeah, we want to validate that information.
And so it's validated.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've dealt with dealers that have been involved in groups and all of that, and they're like, what? Because it's so important, because it in order to really be able to have an educated conversation with a group of people, you have to know you're all comparing the same thing, and that's a hard thing to do with different DMSs.
Right. So let's wrap up with this thing about.
And then I have a comment from George.
Okay. You want to share that now?
I'm sure. It's George. We love you, George. I'd like to expand on your reference to flying blind. A new pilot, like a new dealer, typically is only VFR qualified. Most go on to learn to fly IFR. That way, they can fly in all weather conditions. I'd suggest that much of the coaching is getting dealers IFR rated. Visual flight rules versus instrument flight rules.
That's good.
I love that, because the visual is like, it's kind of it is more like the gut kind of thing. And the instrument, when weather conditions are bad and you can't see the things, but that I've got solid information coming from my instruments,
Mhm.
that I can weather this storm. I can't see visually,
Right.
but I know that I'm running level.
Sure.
I'm running at this altitude, and all
Right.
of those kind of things.
Can I trust that it's time to
Yeah,
descend?
I like that, George.
Right. So that's
Yeah.
great, George. I love the analogy as well. I
Mhm.
think that's a good way to think about this. And I
Mhm.
think we, as far as the thing that we want to urge dealers to do is, if you're not there yet, if your management meetings or your partner meetings don't currently include these conversations, because a lot of our dealers in our meetings, they're talking about sales are up, sales are down, whatever. Like that's a culture shift in a lot of
Mhm.
dealerships means that your meetings, and look, this is we're having this conversation on September 17th of 2025. Your next management meeting can include these numbers, and you can start to make a culture shift within your team
Mhm.
to start to and help the team who's responsible for these things understand the things in the way that you do, so that you can
Mhm.
begin to build this culture and this dialogue in your team around the big stuff. Because I would just suggest to you,
Amen.
how well we're
Yeah.
yielding out of this portfolio is going to be more indicative of your future success
Yeah.
than your sales volume.
And part of creating a team that trusts is being transparent.
Good. Yep.
TTT.
Yep.
Teams that trust are transparent.
Okay.
It's because you as a business owner are being very transparent. These numbers that you're talking about, the three that put them on a board and track them, and your management team have it somewhere that they, if someone else just walks in and they see it, and they can ask, what does this mean? And you can have a conversation. These are the things that we're tracking to make sure that we're seeing what's happening with trends, and that we have the right kind of structures and all of that. So
if you're a DMS provider, reach out to me if you want to get this stuff dialed in. If you're a dealer who can't find these numbers in your DMS, reach out to me. Let's get a conversation with your DMS provider, and let's help emphasize the importance of this and why we think it's important to have things that are compared.
I'll throw any of that kind of help that you might need. And we talk an awful lot about V8, and yes, we would love to have you join. But we also talk about it because there's so much rich information that everyone needs to hear.
Yeah.
And it's like, come and join the conversation. You're all welcome.
Yeah.
We would love to have you all. And we talk about it an awful lot because it is where we're starting to really create rich databases that can help everyone. That's why we have a podcast. We're out there we are out there doing, we're out there educating based on the big picture, the big stuff that is.
And V8 allows us to be more real time. Now, in fairness, we can't bring you all this. Those subscribers are paying to have. We're not going to bring you all the information from V8.
Yeah,
so you're going to have to be a member.
And you're not going to be able to be a part of the conversation, but you can. We will be sharing like some of the big stuff. So if there's anything that we can do to help, whether it be you're interested in joining the conversation, or if you would like help trying to get to these numbers, please reach out. We can help. So call or text 903-816-0216, 903-816-0216. That is Jim's cell phone. Direct.
Call me.
So you can text him.
Send me your joke of the day.
The last time I said send cat memes, we got a few.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
I think that's it. My daughter's birthday's tomorrow. Quick
Happy
shout out
birthday,
to Erin. If you see a beautiful young woman in Dallas by the name of Erin, just tell her a happy birthday tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good place to say middle of the week. It's we've got a I know I have a full schedule. Jim does too. We have a V8 meeting tomorrow night, and There's lots of stuff on our plates. We're those of you guys who aren't aware, we are in the process of getting ready for a move to Guyman, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Too. So that will be happening the end of next month, which is Jim's hometown and where White Hat Way was basically born.
Lots of reasons that came out of left field for us, but it's the right move for us at this time.
Yeah. So. All right, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining. We know you are very busy, and we appreciate you listening. And we will be back on Friday with some more conversation around repos.
Repo calculations. Yep.
All right, everybody. Have a great day.